반갑습니다. 안녕하세요. 새해 복 많이 받으세요. 오늘은 2022년 우리 스파코의 첫 행사입니다. 오늘은 우리 스타이브센트를 대표하시는 두 시니어 분들을 모시게 됐습니다. 우리 승유 교장님 그리고 디나 잉그램 학부 부장 이 두 분을 모시고 또 학교 관련 전반적인 Q&A 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다. Let me just do that in English. Well, thank you for joining us today. This is our first event for the Korean Outreach of the year, and we are honored to be joined by the captains of our of our ship, Principal Yu, and Director of Family Engagement, Dina Ingram, and welcome.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting everyone.
Thank
So,
please.
well, Mr. Yu, why don't I just say a few words and then I'll let Ms. Ingram do that and then we can get into some Q&A. So, Happy New Year. Sorry that it's under some challenging circumstances, but it's really nice that we have such amazing families and doing their very best under some, again, extraordinary conditions. We're really happy to be here. Hopefully we can answer as many questions as possible, and please know things will get better. And I think the goal here is that the more informed everyone can be, the better off we'll be. And the goal here is to work together as we try to get through this this second year of COVID. So really glad to be here tonight.
Okay. I will not translate that because I think they all understood it.
Okay, great.
I was going to ask you, how often do you want to pause for translation if you wanted to translate, or you can stop me if you think that you need translation?
I think, yes, maybe the more complicated contents, then I will sort of ask for some time.
Sounds good. So I just wanted to thank everyone for inviting us to come and speak to you this evening. And I know that there are many questions, and I just wanted to give an overview to the 21-22 year before we started out tonight. I know that it's been a lot to take in. We're already closing out the fall term of 2021 with closing out almost in the end of January. It's rushing by already, mid-month. And we're happy to be back in person, as Mr. Yu said, even though it's under trying circumstances right now, we're happy to be in person with the students. And we've done a lot over the fall term. We've been able to return to in-person instruction and after school activities, even with the exception to this suspension right now with the spike in COVID activity. Our STC has been able to have a fall musical and working on their winter drama. Our robotics has been able to host Sky Splash again. They've been able to go back to some competitions, and like our chess team winning a championship. Some of our teams were able to travel and go back to traveling to trips. So apart from academics, your students have been really busy. We've been able to host our holiday concerts again. That was very exciting with the help of our parent association, new committee with technology. We've been able to live stream our concerts and our parent workshops again in person. So it's been a very exciting fall term, and we've been very thankful to the Parent Association for their help in all of these efforts over the fall term. Our students have been able to have many sessions with our partner for social emotional learning, My Robin. Our freshmen enjoyed sessions in the theater in person, and our counseling in schools counselor, Sapphire Chow, she's been able to have parent workshops and art therapy after school with our students. So it's been really a great thing to be back in person, and this doesn't even speak to the hundreds of clubs and academics that the students have been able to engage in. So we know it's been an exciting fall and it's going to continue in the spring. So we're really excited about that, even with the challenges that we're facing right now.
Great. Let me try to do a summarized translation of that.
Yeah, stop me if I'm going too covering too much.
Again, I'm just trying to reach out to a few people who may have not understood everything. So 오늘 우리 디나 잉그램 학년 부장님께서 학부모하고 이 협력 부장님께서 말씀하신 내용 중에서 가장 기본적인 것은 올해가 아직도 코비드가 계속 이어지면서도 불구하고 상당히 많은 정상적인 액티비티를 할 수 있었고 뭐 다양한 학업만이 아니고 대외적인 것들 또 스포츠 다른 뭐 예를 들어서 체스나 이런 다양한 액티비티 콘서트도 진행할 수 있었고 이렇게 이게 실현이 가능했다는 부분에 대해서 굉장히 감사하게 생각하시고 또 희망적으로 보신다고 말씀하셨습니다. 그래서 앞으로도 이렇게 학부모회의 협력과 도움으로 인해서 이러한 또 난해한 상황에서도 많이 극복할 수 있는 이런 상황에 대해서도 계속 서로 의지하면서 잘 발전시킬 것을 기대하면서 여러분께 감사의 말씀을 드렸습니다.
Thank you.
Okay. Well,
So I know you submitted some questions that have come in, and I thought that maybe we can ask some of those. And of course, I'll turn it over to Principal Yu for some thoughts on those questions and add to them. And then I don't know if you also want to take questions from the floor, have a back and forth tonight. Were there more questions that you wanted to take tonight as well?
yes. So we did have those 6 questions as a warm-up, and hopefully that gets people
I expect there would
excited.
be more.
I think our group tends to be reserved, and so we try to be. We need a little time to warm up.
Okay, well, we'll start with those, and nobody needs to hold back. We're good with questions, right, Principal Yu? I'm very happy the Principal Yu made some time to join us this evening. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So I've heard this saying before. One of the things that we've heard over the years is that at STY you have to choose between good grades, social life, and sleep. You can only have 2 of the 3. And so the question came up, and we hope that that's really not true, but we have heard that saying. So how would we allocate time and energy between schoolwork, extracurriculars, and a social life or hobbies? Maybe I could ask Principal Yu your thoughts first, and then I can also add to that.
Before you go, can I just just quickly give a Korean version of the
Yes.
question?
100%.
네. 우리 첫 질문부터 말씀을 드리겠습니다. 우리의 오늘의 첫 질문은 스타이 학교를 다니면서 좋은 성적과 또 좋은 액티비티, 그 다음에 수면, 그 3가지 중에서 2개밖에 고를 수 없다는 게 예전부터 내려왔던 전통적인 얘기입니다. 그게 어느 정도 진실성이 있는 것 같고, 그렇다면은 이런 상황 속에서 어떻게 시간과 에너지를 이 3가지 요소들에서 잘 분배를 해서 효과적인 학업 생활을 할 수 있는지요? 이게 첫 질문입니다. Okay, it's all the floor is for you. Yes.
Great. You shouldn't have to choose only 2. You should have all of those. So I can't speak on behalf of my predecessors, but I think Stuyvesant, what's amazing about Stuyvesant is the types of courses that you can take, the types of activities you can participate in, and the friends and memories that you can make in high school. Sleep, the goal here is that we want kids to sleep because we want them to be productive human beings. And what I mean by that is not only being a productive student, but being a productive friend, being a productive son, daughter, all of those things that are extremely important.
왜 마이크폰이 안 되지?
the reason I say that too is because they're preparing for life after high school. This is what colleges look for. This is what our students, when they go to college, that's the type of lifestyle they're going to want. They need to find the balance. And so it's important that they get a combination of all of those things. So let me stop there and then I'll.
Yeah, can I pause that? Yeah, thank you. All right. 유 교장님께서 말씀하신 내용 중에서 처음부터 그 세 가지 요소를 다 갖추는 게 중요합니다. 하나를 이렇게 하나나 두 개를 선별해서 희생을 시키는 그런 삶은 권장하지 않습니다. 무엇보다 대학교에서 지금 추구하시는 거는 이런 상황 속에서 선택적으로 잘 자기 스케줄을 관리하고 그런 밸런스를 잘 유지할 수 있는 성숙한 삶과 자세를 보고 있습니다. 그래서 그런 것을 잘 실행했을 때 또 대학교에서도 굉장히 좋게 볼 것이고.
The other thing I'll say too is you have to work hard at Stuyvesant. I mean, you've got 3,300 students, all some of the top performers in New York City. And it just requires a lot of hard work. So some days you might get more sleep than others. Some days you might have some really tough classes while also participating in a number of different activities. But this is what we're preparing for after high school, because college will be like that. So will being a professional. And our job is to help them find balance, because we want students to remember high school. We want it to be a positive experience and be a way to transition into college, because college is about learning more about yourself, finding out what you're interested in. And the sooner you can develop that starting in high school might give you more clarity when you get to college, particularly if you are interested in certain fields or interested in hobbies or extracurriculars. Those are things that you'll ideally explore in college in more depth. And the sooner you can find that out, the sooner you might, again, explore that in college, which I think everyone would like to have their kid only stay in college for 4 years as opposed to 5 or 6, unless it's grad school.
네, 이어서 말씀드리자면 스타이브슨입니다. 굉장히 난해하고 어려운 학교이긴 합니다. 그리고 다들 열심히 하는 학교이고 3,300명의 학생들이 뉴욕시에서 최고의 두뇌와 능력을 갖춘 학생들이 파이팅하는 학교입니다. 당연히 열심히 일을 해야 되고 그거에 대해서 익숙해야 되고 학교에서도 그만큼 기대를 하고 있습니다. Working hard는 당연한 기초적인 것인데 이 와중에서도 이제 어떻게 내 시간 관리를 하는지, 또 대학교에서도 그런 시간 관리를 잘하는 사람들을 추구하고 있기 때문에 이런 일찌감치 고등학교에서 그런 시간 관리 능력, 그 다음에 나의 관심 분야에 대한 집중할 수 있는 그러한 또 성숙한 태도, 이런 부분들이 대학에서도 굉장히 유리하게 작용될 것으로 저는 기대하고 있습니다. 그랬을 때 대학교 생활이 그만큼 수월할 것이고 그만큼 더 즐거울 것입니다. 그래서 그러한 삶에 대해서도 여러분들도 좀 긍정적으로 생각하시고 그렇게 옆에서 도와주시길 바랍니다.
Ms. Ingram, you might want to say a few words since you've actually raised a Stuyvesant grad.
Yeah, I wanted to comment. I do agree with Principal Yu 100% that you really shouldn't have to choose. But at Stuyvesant, just practically speaking, it can be challenging because there are some choices to make. And when you come to a large school, students are faced with really a buffet of choices to make. And there is that feeling of FOMO, which is, fear of missing out. And so it is a challenge for students to make choices. And so fortunately, we have a lot of assets at Stuyvesant that help them. The freshmen have the push-ins with counselors where they meet as freshmen in groups, and they go over time management, they go over setting schedules. They do meet in small groups as freshmen and sophomores for the same reason. But at home, it's also important to go over the choices and a schedule, and to set schedules weekly, and to focus really on what are the choices that you're going to make. Because I think it's challenging for Stuyvesant students to partake in everything. They do feel like they're missing out on something at times if they're not partaking in everything that the school might have to offer. And that's where it becomes the, oh, well, choose two of the three, where you might start missing out on sleep. And you might not be making friends, or that becomes that saying where you're only going to get two out of the three. Personally, it's not that my child who graduated Stuyvesant was some kind of superhuman. She got to have all three. She just chose one of each. It wasn't every single activity. She chose a path, and she chose what was her favorite thing. And she got to choose sports, and, became a leader in one thing, and, excelled at an academic that she chose, not every single academic. She hated math and loved English. So it can't be excellent at every single thing. She didn't fail math, but she didn't love it. So, that was just my experience. But I've seen that in many students, when they try to excel at every single thing, you lose track of your time. So time management is very important. And as parents, setting a schedule, not being afraid to go over it with them, not hovering over that schedule and pounding it into them, but practically speaking, setting a schedule in the beginning, especially in freshman year, teaching that time management and helping them, just practically speaking, does help with not having to make those choices between the three.
All right. I'll do a summary version. 이 부모로서 이 스타의 자녀를 보낸 입장에서도 제가 말씀을 드리자면은, 네, 그 이론적으로 세 가지를 다 갖추는 것은 우리 유교장님의 말씀 맞습니다. 꼭 그것을 선택을 꼭 하고 뭐 하나를 줄여야 된다는 것은 좀 잘못된 상황인데, 그러나 현실은 그렇지 않습니다. 현실은 뭔가 시간을 할애해야 되고 어떤 거는 희생해야 되는 게 사실인 것 같습니다. 그럼에도 불구하고 여기서 그래서 제일 중요한 거는 시간을 관리하는 게 제일 우선순위인 것 같고요. 그리고 여기서는 굉장히 큰 학교입니다. 그리고 굉장히 큰 버페처럼 굉장히 많은 것을 제공을 합니다. 그러다 보니까 뭔가를 놓칠지 않을까 하는 그런 두려움, 그거를 소위 말해서 FOMO, Fear of Missing Out이 발생을 합니다. 그러면 이제 너무 무례한 그 제한된 시간 내에서 너무 무리한 그 것들을 추구할 때 그런 이제 안타까운 현상들이 나타나는데, 그래서 제 딸 경우에도 세 가지를 다 했습니다. 잠도 잤고 공부도 잘하고 운동도 하고. 하지만 그것 선택적으로 해야 되고 집중을 미리 선택을 해야 되고, 그 다음에 또 1, 2학년 때 우리가 많은 것을 지원합니다. 어떻게 시간 관리하는 방법, 그런 것도 매니징 할 수 있도록 카운슬러들이 도와주고, 그러한 것을 일찌감치 준비를 잘 하는 것이 너무 중요한 것 같고요. 그거를 통해서 집에서도 부모님께서 너무 시간을 관리해주는 무슨 매니저 역할이 아니고 충분히 그들이 그 매니징을 제대로 할 수 있도록 어떠한 그 삶의 그 시간을 많이 뺏기지 않는 그런 액티비티를 잘 관리할 수 있도록 부모님께서 도와주는 것도 매우 중요하다고 생각합니다. 네. So I try my best to provide the summary.
I'm gonna cut in half next time, Mr. Yu. I'm gonna stop.
No. That's great.
I know that now, we're going to jump to what we're going through right now. I know everybody's minds are on the COVID spike that we are experiencing right now and the situation that we're going through at school. And so the question is pretty blunt.
못 들었다.
And
투원.
how should we deal with the COVID spike as parents? And is temporary remote learning even an option? So I'm going to let you handle that question, Ms.
Sure.
Principal Yu.
Let me offer the Korean version of the question.
Yes,
So,
of course.
지금 현재 코비드가 스파이킹하고 있습니다. 그리고 이거에 대해서 부모로서 어떻게 대처를 해야 할지요. 그리고 혹시 비대면 수업의 제도가 옵션이긴 합니까?
So the first thing is, if your child is sick or not feeling well, is to keep them at home. That's the number one thing. Their health and safety is the most important thing. So that's the number one recommendation. And then two, while of course everyone is worried about the academics, if a student is absent because they've got symptoms or they're quarantined, all of those are excused absences. We can make up test or homework or any of the work. So that's the most important thing, is to stay healthy. And if you're feeling well, then our school is open. We want students to come, continue to follow all health procedures. But if they're not feeling well, stay at home until they get better. I'll stop there.
우선적으로 자녀분이 아프든가 뭔가 증세가 있으면은 집에 있는 게 상책입니다. 그래서 집에서 자기를 케어하고 또 코비드든 아니든 그런 아픔이 있으면은 집에서 좀 쉬는 게 좋을 것 같고, 그런 것들이 또 excuse absence로 간주될 수 있으니 그거에 대해서 뭐 시험이나 놓친 숙제가 있으면 그거는 메이크업이 가능합니다. 그래서 그런 코비드 증세가 있을 경우에는 집에서 꼭 있고 쉬는 게 상책입니다.
Remote learning is not an option right now. School is open. Only if you're quarantined, then there are specific office hours that each of the teachers, chooses, and then they put work on their classroom platform. Most of it is Google Classroom, but there is no remote learning at this point. Now, that could change, but right now the city has said schools are open, and in-person learning is how we're proceeding.
현재로서 리모트 러닝이 옵션이 존재하지 않습니다. 아직 그 뉴욕시 교육청에서는 그거를 불허하고 있고 대면 수업만 지금 허락하고 있고, 만약에 코비드가 있어서 지금 집에서 장기적으로 있어야 할 경우에는 구글 클래스룸을 통해서 각 선생님께서 숙제를 그 리모트 러닝 방식으로 올리고, 그래도 수업을 그래도 어느 정도 할 수 있도록 그런 협조는 하고 있습니다. 그 정도가 지금 현재 이루어지고 있고, 아직까지 비대면 수업은 우리의 옵션이 아닙니다.
The last thing I'll say is, I know we're closing in on the fall term and we'll have final grades. Those are the grades that end up on transcripts. This year, again, students or families can request a CR, which is a credit, it's identified as a credit, to replace the numerical value, whatever the grade may be, and that will be on the transcript. We are communicating with colleges about this as a policy, so it doesn't hurt students. Colleges are well aware of this. Every school district is doing some version of a CR to account for grades being impacted by COVID.
아울러 본 학기에서도 조만간에 지금 가을 학기가 마감이 되는데 성적에 대해서는 아직도 그 CR이라는 옵션이 있습니다. 크레딧은 받고 특별한 어떤 숫자적인 성적이 들어가지 않기 때문에 최종적인 그 트랜스크립트에는 반영이 안 되어 있습니다. 그래서 CR로만 간주되어 있고 이 부분에서는 대학에서는 다 이해할 수 있도록 저희가 커뮤니케이션을 계속 진행하고 있습니다.
And then finally, I'm sure Ms. Ingram will want to chime in on this. When we pass out, when we've been passing out test kits, COVID test kits, at-home test kits, we are going to give more information about when and how to use them because we'll start doing that more regularly, at least for January. So when we provide the communication, we want families to read it. And if they have questions, to please communicate with us so that we can give or explain to them what to do.
네, 자녀분들을 통해서 집에서 실시할 수 있는 코비드 테스트 키트를 이제 드릴 겁니다. 이미 가져간 학생들도 있을 테고 앞으로도 가져갈 것이고 그거에 대해서 집에서 그 시험을 계속해서 코비드 상황을 빠른 시일 내에 파악할 수 있도록 저희가 계속 안내를 해드리고 그거에 대해서 교육도 실시할 예정입니다.
Ingram, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge that this is a very stressful time. So we know that that this has caused a lot of extra stress and anxiety and some confusion. So I just wanted to acknowledge that we're doing the best we can to try to communicate more to you. And I know that if there is a need for translation, if you don't understand anything, please do reach out. I can translate, I'll put your email through Google Translate and we'll do our best to try and get a translation to you. Please don't be afraid to reach out because we want you to understand what we're sending out and not create more stress.
네, 지금 상황이 상당히 스트레스가 높은 상황입니다. 그거는 우리도 인정하고 자녀분들에게도 굉장히 어려운 상황임을 저희도 인정을 합니다. 그래서 이러한 상황을 통해서 어떻게 잘 우리가 또 도와주고 또 학생들의 뭐 구체적으로 개인적인 어려움들이 있으면은 충분히 저희를 연락 주시고 혹시 뭐 한글로도 써주셔도 됩니다. 그래서 이메일을 보내주시면 저희가 최대한 그거를 답변을 드리고 또 대응을 해드릴 수 있도록 노력을 하도록 하겠습니다.
I also just wanted to stress, I know the question was how to deal with the COVID spike as parents. And the best thing we can do is, I know one of the things that the students, they're not really reading the health screening. But as Principal Yu said, when they're not feeling well, it's important for them to stay home. It's okay to stay home. The academics will be made up, but it really is okay to stay home. We are a very high performing school and these are diligent students and we are diligent parents. But in the times we are in right now, it's okay to stay home.
네, 잘 알아두셨겠지만 혹시나 해서 자녀분들이 좀 힘드시고 아프면 이런 시기에는 집에서 쉬어도 괜찮습니다. 그리고 충분히 그걸 메이크업 할 수 있고 자녀분도 되게 훌륭한 열심히 일하는 학생들이기 때문에 충분히 캐치업 할 수 있습니다. 걱정하지 마시고 쉬고 싶은 날은 쉴 수 있도록 이렇게 자녀분들하고 잘 상의하십시오.
I'm going to move to the next question, but Mr. Yu, I know there's some things coming into the chat that I have no idea what they say. So if there are questions that you think you wanted to interject, please let me know.
Sure, let me just, I could just do quickly. There was a clarification. Was it
Sure.
the three things that we usually juggle between? It was schoolwork, sleep, and activities. And yes, that is correct. There was one quick question that really, I think this is something we can answer quickly. Some people take the school bus through like a private busing system. and it usually comes at 6 o'clock. And they're saying if the club ends at 5, they have to be somewhere for an hour. And it's sort of cold these days. And they have to either go to Barnes and Nobles or some, cafe nearby. Is it possible then for them to just stay in school until the bus arrives, especially just during the winter time?
So I've taken on this question a few times, especially right now, since we do not have after school activities taking place. We would not be able to accommodate that. But I've given some suggestions to the Parent Association of places where students can go. Whole Foods, Brookfield Place, Poets House, nearby the public library. And Mr. Yu, Principal Yu, I know there's two of you, Mr. Yu and Principal Yu. Principal Yu can chime in. It is a supervision issue. We won't be able to keep the school, after school activities open to accommodate that, keeping the school running an extra hour for that purpose for the private bus company.
Yeah, I mean, right now, after school activities have been postponed at this point because of COVID. Certain supervised activities, very minimal activities are taking place, including PSAL. But one of the things, as Ms. Ingram said, is about supervision. So we're trying to have more of that, and if we're able to secure that, for an extra hour or so, then we'll do our very best. But right now, it's we don't have that available yet.
학교 끝나고 한두 시간 더 추가적으로 학교에 머물 수 있는 그 여부에 대해서는 아직까지는 그 관리할 수 있고 슈퍼바이징 할 수 있는 인력이 없어가지고 그거를 실행하기 어려운데, 향후 그러한 관리를 해줄 수 있는 인력이 어느 정도 보충이 되면 그것들을 계속 고려해 보겠습니다. 아직까지는 현재는 불가능하지만 계속 노력 중입니다. Okay, I guess that's it for that segment, but should we move on to other questions?
Yeah, there was one thing in the chat though from Mr. Joseph Yu. Since we did cover this with Principal Yu on remote learning, about asking the city or the school district, which we are one school district in the city, about remote learning, since the number of confirmed cases is increasing every day. Since that's not something they're using, we know our city is almost about 30%, so they're not using that to close schools anymore. Principal Yu, did you want to comment on why we wouldn't ask the city for that accommodation?
So that would be a city decision by the chancellor and the mayor. One thing that every school, and I talked to many principals, all of us are concerned. We're concerned with staffing. We're concerned with the number of students, because it is truly challenging to try to teach when students aren't here or when you don't have enough teaching staff. Every day we provide information about our status, number of teachers that are absent, number of students that are absent, and every day I write, I am heavily concerned about not having enough staff or taxing the staff, as well as students every day, more students potentially testing positive. We don't get to make that decision, but my union, I know the teachers union, and I think many families feel like there should be an option, but unfortunately we don't get to make that decision. And this is also a new administration, and so again, I think what our role is to make sure that we voice kind of our status, and we continually do that. Whether it's currently what's happening now, as well as during Regents Week, all of those things of trying to figure out what flexibilities we have right now. And unfortunately, we're in person. We're following all the protocols. but we all recognize this is not an ideal situation. And I say that because Ms. Ingram's been working every night and weekends, Mr. Moran, myself, and I know all our teachers and I know all our students and families. I think we're gonna have to continue to monitor it. Our numbers in terms of attendance has gone down. Our COVID cases have increased, just like everyone else. And so we're keeping a close eye on the status and doing everything we can to prepare if by chance there is that decision made by, the chancellor or the mayor to shift temporarily.
Okay, let me try to do a summary version of that.
Sorry, Mr. Yu.
No,
we can switch places. You can be the principal now.
Let me just. I think most people understood, but I just just in case, it's 네, 지금 그 결정 리모트로 비대면으로 수업을 하는 그 자체는 챈슬러와 또 시장님의 결정이지 우리 학교의 결정 사항이 아니기 때문에 우리도 기다리고 있습니다. 그리고 많은 교장들하고도 지금 교류하면서 대화를 했지만 대부분 지금 다들 어려워하고 있습니다. 학생 수도 줄었고 선생님도 줄었고 코비드 케이스는 올라가고 있고 여러 방면으로 굉장히 어려움들이 많습니다. 저희도 매일 밤에 주말도 이렇게 일을 하면서 이것을 계속 유지할 수 있도록 굉장히 애쓰고 있습니다. 그러나 결정적으로는 그 시장님과 챈슬러의 결정이기 때문에 우리는 그거를 주의시하고 있고 또 혹시 그렇게 가자고 결의가 나면은 또 그거에 맞춰서 우리는 또 할 준비는 하겠습니다. 그러나 현재로서는 대면 수업 제도로 가고 있고 이렇게 계속 이제 저희도 면밀히 지금 살피고 있습니다. 어떻게 진행될지. Okay, I did my best.
Thank you. Do you want me to move to the next question?
Please.
Okay, so it's totally different subject. So what are some of the most underutilized precious resources and opportunities that's at STI that you think are really great? So I'll make the first comment and then, Principal, you can chime in on what he thinks in his time here is one of the most, and I'd be interested to know what you think, and maybe some of the parents can comment too on some of their thoughts on the underutilized resources at STI. I think one of the most underutilized things at STI, at least for parents, is STIactivities.org, the website that the student union has put together. Each of your students. Do you want to go over the question before I answer it?
Oh, sure. 네, 질문 사항은 현재 세 번째 질문은 이 스타에서 가장 귀하고 좋은 것들이 많은데 이 스타에서 잘 활용도가 낮은 그러한 자원이 무엇일까요? 그 귀한 자원에 대해서 좀 안내 좀 부탁드리겠습니다. 가 질문입니다.
So as I was saying, STIactivities.org is a website that the student union a couple of years ago they put together, and it is where they house all of their clubs and activities, and it gives a description and who the student leaders are, and it tells students about all of the different clubs that they can join. They have a calendar of when the clubs are meeting, and it really does help students to see what clubs are available. Each year they have, of course, the club pub fair, but in a school that has 200 clubs and activities and 43 sports teams, it really was a huge asset to have. Having been here before we had that website and having just a spreadsheet, it was really a great addition to Stuyvesant. So please encourage your students, and there is a public facing one for parents to explore too, so that you could learn about every single club. And there's searches that you can do for how much time commitment a student is willing to give to a club, and they can sort by the type of club that they want to join or the time commitment. And I thought that was a really great addition to Stuyvesant for students. another thing that I think is underutilized is our blog.
Can I try one
Oh,
more?
you do that one first. Sorry.
네. 네, 우선적으로 한 2년 전에 제작된 웹사이트이 있는데 styleactivities.org라고 지금 우리 채트방에 올려놨습니다. 이 웹사이트는 스타이에서 한 200여 개의 액티비티를 구체적으로 자세히 이렇게 설명이 되어 있고 그거를 또 설치를 할 수 있는 기능도 있습니다. 그리고 스포츠도 우리 43개나 되는 이 대형 학교인데 예전에는 클럽s 앤 펍이라는 그런 날을 통해서 각 액티비티를 소개하는 그런 행사는 있었지만 이렇게 웹사이트를 통해서 많은 분들에게 좀 더 자세히 또 섬세하게 서칭할 수 있는 기능이 굉장히 요긴하게 사용할 수 있다고 저는 생각합니다.
Thank you, Mr. Yu. The blog on Talos, if you ever need to know what's going on in 1 week and you don't have the time to read the weekly update, it's a catchy picture and it shows you what's going on that week on the Talos blog. So that's also a quick way to find out what's happening each week.
네, 두 번째로는 우리 탈로스의 블로그가 있습니다. 그 블로그를 통해서 매주 무슨 일이 있는지 어떤 행사가 이루어지고 있는지 그런 주요 이벤트에 대해서 자세한 또 설명과 안내들이 있습니다. 그것도 잘 활용하시기 바랍니다.
I would just add the library, our Style library has so many free publications and access to a variety of resources. I know many students use it as a place, but there are many things in the library, both electronically and physically, that students can use. I would also just echo just the amount of clubs and sports that we have available. Particularly when you're a freshman and sophomore, to really explore, to find what you might be interested in and to meet new friends. I think it's really important to take advantage because we have so many of both sports and activities that ideally there will be something that a student can find interesting. And then, go ahead, Mr. Yu.
Yeah, okay. So part one of Principal Yu's also answer is 도서관입니다. 도서관을 잘 활용하시기 바라고 또 도서관이 어떤 그냥 모이고 거기서 공부할 수 있는 장소만이 아니고 전자적인 자료나 또는 물리적으로 책자도 굉장히 풍성한 자료들이 많이 있습니다. 그거를 활용하면은 상당히 도움이 되리라고 생각하고요. 그다음에 아까 말씀하신 굉장히 수많은 클럽들과 오르가니제이션이 있는데 꼭 이렇게 다양하게 많이 제공된 학교가 드물고 이 많이 있기 때문에 또 각자의 자기 분야 또 취미에 맞는 것을 선택할 수 있다고 저는 생각합니다. Yes.
And the final resource is the people, staff, alumni, parents. And one of the things I found at Stuyvesant is that we have so many incredible contacts and networks. What it requires a student to do is to have some courage, to ask a question, to see if someone can help, and to be persistent. And I think that's one of the things that I'd like to see more of across all students. I've had when I've opened it up, when asked students to come visit or talk, not that many students do that. And I understand I'm the principal, but regular old human being, and I do want to get to know the students more. And part of it is to see whether or not students are going to take the initiative, because I think it's important. We have so many different staff members, so many different parents, so many different alumni, but it does take some courage. And that's a skill that we want all young people to have the courage to ask a question, to see how someone can provide some support, give advice, because that's what's going to also be, important for college, for life after college, all of those skill sets. And it takes courage to do that.
Wow. 예, 세 번째 그리고 되게 중요한 자원은 사람들입니다. 우리 학교의 스태프들과 그리고 동문들 그리고 카운슬러들 이 수많은 훌륭한 인력들이 이 도움만 요청하면 조금 더 적극성을 보이면은 굉장히 잘 도와줄 수 있는 그런 분들이 굉장히 많습니다. 그래서 여러분들의 자녀분들이 조금만 더 노력하고 그분들에게 용기를 내서 질문하고 요청을 하고 그 다음에 좀 더 뭐 한 번에 제대로 답을 안 해줬으면 좀 더 계속 여러 가지 계속 노력을 하는 그런 모습으로 접근을 하면은 또 기대 이상의 좋은 도움들을 많이 받을 수 있다고 저는 생각합니다. 그래서 또 그런 기술들이 그런 재능들이 대학교에서도 요구되고 사회에서도 요구되는 거기 때문에 자녀분들이 일찌감치 그런 자원 다른 분들에게 도움을 요청하는 그러한 기술도 계속 습득하기를 저희는 권장하고 있습니다.
Mr. I just want to also add, as every parent is considering college for their child, and when I say about the adults, we have 3,300 plus students. It is hard to get to know students really well, which requires students to meet us halfway. So the students that I remember the most are the ones that make sure they swing by and say hello to me, or come by and say, Mr. Yu, can I just ask you a question, or can we talk? And the same way for teachers and for all staff, it requires that because we're in such a large school. And that's one thing that I would really want to encourage students is make yourself seen. Speak with the teacher, speak with the staff member, speak with me, speak with Ms. Ingram, because it's hard to get to know all the students really, really well. It's a two-way street, and we need students to do that because it helps us also think about recommendations, think about the ways that the student stands out.
Great point. 예, 그리고 우리 학교는 굉장히 크죠. 선생님도 많고 학생은 3,300명이나 되는데 그렇기 때문에 서로를 알아가기가 굉장히 어렵습니다. 그리고 깊이 알기는 더더욱 어렵고요. 그렇기 때문에 이거에서는 학생들의 노력도 필요합니다. 선생님이 다 알아낼 수 없기 때문에 학생들도 자기 자신을 좀 더 노출을 하고 교장 선생님도 찾아갈 수도 있고 뭐 미스 잉그램도 찾아갈 수 있고 카운슬도 찾아갈 수 있고 선생님하고도 얘기를 나눌 수도 있고 본인들의 어떤 적극성을 좀 더 나타내면서 충분히 그런 교류감을 할 수 있도록 노력하는 부분도 굉장히 중요하다고 생각하고 그것이 또 나중에 레코멘데이션 레터로도 이어질 수도 있고 그런 부분들을 다 고려해서 자녀분들이 적극적으로 사회의 어떤 우리 스타일 사회에 계속 나타나고 적극적으로 그렇게 교류를 하는 것을 권장합니다. Okay, I think I did okay.
I'm sure you did great. The next question was about clubs that may be difficult to join, such as Arista or the Student Union, because there may be qualified candidates, but there seems to be, or there appears to be, a tradition to pass down spots. And how can we pass or break these barriers down? Maybe you can just say the question and then I have a comment on the question.
Okay. 뭐 질문 하나는 어떤 그 액티비티나 클럽에는 그 가입하기가 좀 어렵거나 좀 자리를 잡기가 좀 어려워하는 게 있습니다. 특별히 뭐 아리스타나 뭐 스튜던트 유니언 이런 데는 가입조차도 좀 어려운 부분이 있고 어떤 승계 제도가 좀 적용되는 부분도 관례적으로 있는 것 같습니다. 이런 부분들을 어떻게 우리가 헤쳐나갈 수 있을지요?
So when I read this question, I had to put on my parent hat because my daughter was on the executive council of Arista when she was here at Stuyvesant. And so I felt that this question was more directed towards the leadership roles that exist in these clubs, such as, the leaders of Arista, the leaders of the student union. They seem to be, or even when we have the SING coordinators or STC, they seem to be the same students year after year. And it doesn't necessarily mean that all the members of those organizations are the same students. And that's not to say that those are a good thing, that they seem to be passed down. But there are a lot of opportunities to be members of those organizations. I think Arista has 300 members that are inducted each year. There isn't a passing down of roles because it's only seniors that get an executive role, but in the student union, the presidents of each year seem to be the same. And I think that one thing that students can do is really to be brave. I think many students, because they go in with that feeling of thinking that it's going to be the same students that get it in freshman year are going to get it in sophomore and move up. They usually run unopposed. There's very rarely a contender to the race in those roles, because there's already a predisposition that nobody's going to run against them. So you never know what's going to happen if your child runs. And so students, in order to break that mold, somebody has to run. So there may be, for the leadership roles, there just needs to be maybe a few students who need to break the mold to run in those leadership roles. On the other hand, there's many other roles in the student union that go out, and I don't know if parents are aware of them. Maybe you can translate that, and then we can talk a little bit about it.
Okay. 요 질문에 대해서는 제가 엄마의 생각을 하도록 그렇게 좀 준비를 했습니다. 이 질문에 대해서는 그 클럽의 이제 그 익세큐티브 자리들, 그런 어떤 임원 자리들에 대해서는 제가 말씀을 드리겠습니다. 그거는 어떻게 보면 1학년 때 그 선택된 학생이 계속 이어서 2학년, 3학년 계속 이어지는 것 같은데, 예, 그거는 현실적으로 그렇게 보이긴 합니다. 하지만 이 부분을 어느 정도 또 그 패턴을 좀 줄이기 위해서라면 학생들이 용감해야 됩니다. 나서고 자기도 도전을 하고, 이 선거 제도이기 때문에 선거에 대해서 또 열심히 또 참여하고 준비하고 도전을 해야지만 그런 롤이 나타날 수 있고, 그 다음에 두 번째는 클럽이 굉장히 많습니다. 그리고 또 많은 클럽에서도 굉장히 많은 그런 롤들이 있고요. 임원 자리들이 있고, 그래서 그런 것들 다 고려해서 잘 찾으시면 자녀분들도 만족스러운 그런 롤을 받을 수 있으리라고 저희는 생각합니다.
Let me just add, one thing about Stuyvesant is we've had lots of traditions and a long history, and one of those is kind of student independence. So we've been trying to find the right balance between students having control and making some decisions while also doing it fairly, or as fairly as we hope. And so we've tried to figure out where we can shed some insights and some structures. But in complete honesty, this last year and a half, we have not, probably partaked as much as we probably need to, but I think the conditions, unfortunately, our attention is, in other places. But I think that is something we do want to take a closer look at, because we do want to strike that right balance so that it is fair and that those opportunities are available. What I also will say is what Ms. Ingram said. Many of the student leaders in the student union ran unopposed. So part of what that tells us, and that's been like that for the past, I think 2 to 3, maybe even longer. One thing that I would say, and this goes back to some of the things I said originally, it is really hard being a teenager right now. But one of the things that also we are wanting teenagers to learn is to persevere. So something that, I'll share a short story. I ran for ninth grade president and lost badly. um, and for 3 years or for 2 years, I played on the football team and sat on the bench for 2 years. But I stuck with it. And this is one of the things I think that's hard for teenagers now is this instant gratification. You may never play, you may never win, but part of what we want to encourage is the courage that you didn't fail, even if you didn't win. Go through that exercise. And that's something that I do think is really so important, particularly now that, instant gratification, you want it. If you don't get it immediately, then like, oh, I'm not going to do it. I'll do something else. And, I don't want to say, our kids are tough too. Trust me, our kids are really tough. But we've got to find that balance that you may not get everything. You might need to persevere, and it may not look exactly the way you want it. But there's a lot of learning that comes from that.
Okay.
I'm sorry that I not stopped, Mr. Yu.
No worries. I'm gonna do my best.
Yeah.
So 이 질문에 대해서 제가 드릴 의견은 스타이러스는 오래된 학교입니다. 그래서 전통도 깊습니다. 그 전통 깊은 중에 일원이 학생 그 클럽이나 액티비티에 대해서 학생회들에서 학교에서 관할을 하는 거를 굉장히 자제를 하고 있습니다. 학생들이 독립적으로 그거를 운영할 수 있도록 내버려 두는 게 우리의 어떤 기본적인 폴리시인데, 그럼에도 불구하고 어느 정도 우리는 계속 그거를 밸런스를 적절하게 유지하려고 하는 게 저희의 또 의지이긴 합니다. 지난 1년 반 동안 사실 저희들이 많이 관여를 안 했습니다. 그래서 학생들이 자체적으로 그런 승계 제도를 했던 투표 제도를 했던 그거를 공정하게 했는지 안 했는지에 대해서는 사실 관리가 크게 잘 된 것 같지는 않지만, 그럼에도 불구하고 우리의 앞으로도 그런 공정성이 잘 유지될 수 있도록 관할할 예정이고, 그 다음에 이제 한 가지 덧붙여서 말씀드리자면은 우리 미스 잉그램께서 말씀하신 대로 용기가 필요합니다. 용기를 통해서 그 다음에 그거에 대해서 지속적으로 노력하는 그런 끈기도 우리 자녀들이 필요합니다. 저도 제 예를 말씀을 드리자면, 전 9학년 때 학생회장 그 9학년 부문에 대해서 이제 선거에 나섰는데 떨어졌습니다. 그리고 풋볼 선수로 뛰고 싶었는데 2년 동안 선택을 못 받아가지고 계속 그러나 계속 노력했습니다. 결국은 들어가긴 했고, 이러한 부분들이 어떤 자녀들에게 우리 학생들 훌륭합니다. 그리고 다 그 저력이 있습니다. 그러지만 추가적으로 지속성, 그 다음에 그 끈기, 실패했다고 바로 그냥 다른 거 찾아야지 하는 그런 즉흥적인 태도에서 좀 더 끈끈하게 지속적으로 노력을 해야겠다는 그런 의지를 갖고 있는 학생들이 될 수 있도록 그렇게 여러분도 격려해 주시고 그런 자녀들이 되기를 저희는 기대합니다. Okay.
The last thing I'll just say about that, sorry, and I'll go slow. This is going to sound funny, but I didn't play for 2 years, but my senior year I did play, and we won the state championship in football. And this is funny because it's such a long time ago, but that experience still resonates with me now. Like, I find this is a very challenging time, and I go back to those days when, again, like, things were tough too, even as a teenager, and trying to think about the things that you can kind of have in your toolbox as experiences. So I share that just because I think it's important that our young people, and this will be an experience for them that they're going through for the past year and a half, but to and I'm not saying that you just have to be so tough that you can't let anything get to you, but it's striking that balance between persevering, and our young people have been extraordinary, and we're asking them to be, continue to be extraordinary. But I think that's something too that we'll want to continue to emphasize, that we know that our young people can, with some help and support, we know that they can be the very best.
Wow. So 좀 더 구체적으로 제 스토리에 대해서 일원을 좀 더 디테일을 말씀드리자면 저희가 풋볼을 했을 때 2년 동안 그 팀에 못 들어갔습니다. 그러나 제 시니어 때 저희 풋볼 팀에 들어갔고 그리고 우리 팀이 주 챔피언이 됐습니다. 굉장히 저는 그러한 경험을 아직까지도 굉장히 그 노력과 인내의 열매에 대해서 굉장히 좀 좋게 생각하고 있고 우리 자녀들에게도 그러한 인내와 끈기를 통해서 성공적인 사례가 지금 고등학교 때 열매를 맺으면은 앞으로도 굉장히 그거에 대해서 또 그 도전 정신이 강해지리라고 저는 생각하고 그렇게 여러분들에게도 자녀들을 그렇게 격려를 해주시길 바랍니다. Okay. All right, we're down to our last formal question, and I guess we can open the floor. If you would you.
Yeah, it's a tough one too.
Mm.
So I don't know if I agree, but I'm going to read the question.
Okay.
It
Okay.
says, I think we agree that all teachers are not all the same. Well, I think I can agree. And that some can be stingy with grades. What are some measures that students and parents can take to overcome such a situation? And I think maybe we can alter what we're trying to say there a little bit, or maybe you can help with translation, Mr. Yu.
Absolutely. Let me just try to translate the question first. 모든 선생님이 다 동등하고 똑같지 않다는 것은 우리 다 뭐 이해합니다. 하지만 어떤 선생님은 좀 성적에 대해서 좀 짜게 하시는 분도 있는 것 같고요. 그런데 우리 학생으로서 또는 학부모로서 이러한 어려운 난해한 상황을 어떻게 잘 극복할 수 있을까요? Okay.
I'm gonna, of course, because it has to do with grading, I'm gonna allow the principal to answer first.
Yeah. So let me try to answer it this way. All teachers are not the same. And one of the things that we've tried to do with our policies is to create more consistency. I think both the beauty and the challenge at Stuyvesant is that, many of what makes some of our teachers really great is the autonomy. But that also creates some inconsistencies, which I think, we've seen. So rather than focus on what the students and parents can do, what I would say is some of the things that we're trying to do is, we have an online grade book. We haven't had that before to try to create some more clarity with how grades are. Secondly, one of the things that with the grade book, it allows us to also take a closer look at grades. I mean, this question came up, Mr. Yu, in a parent chat. This is something that, we need to be better at. It's looking at the data so that we can think about those policies. And, I can't speak, again, about my predecessors and what their focus was, but that is a focus for me and for our, for our administration. Not to, not for the sake of reprimanding teachers, but for helping them understand this is what happens when, there's inconsistency, because then there might be like, oh, I want that teacher because they grade differently versus another. And the fact of the matter is that, we have different teachers. So we need to create structures to create more consistency. And then I would say the last thing too, and this is not something that, everyone has a different opinion. I mean, one of the reasons why we have uniform finals is because it goes across a specific class or course that might be taught by different teachers. Again, these are practices that we haven't always done at Stuyvesant, which is one where we're moving towards that, or we're trying to move towards that, so that we can think about the ways in which there is more consistency. It's not an overnight fix. It's going to take some time to create that. But what I would say is, we want families and students to voice and let us know so that we can take a closer look and continue to do so. But it will take some work in this effort.
All right. Let me try to translate. 네, 맞습니다. 모든 선생님이 같지 않습니다. 그러나 이제 저희의 지금 의지와 포커스는 이런 들쑥날쑥한 이런 상황을 좀 더 고르게 다들 이렇게 컨시스텐하게 만드는 게 저의 또 뜻이기도 합니다. 그러나 이제 스타이가 오랫동안 선생님들이 독립체제로 교육을 시켰던 부분들을 저희가 지금 한 걸음 한 걸음 고치려고 하고 있는데 그 중에 일원은 최근에 저희가 이제 Pupil Path라는 프로그램을 통해서 단일화한 성적을 리포팅하는 단일화하는 그런 제도를 저희가 도입을 하면서 그게 이제 장점은 성적을 저희가 다 한눈으로 분석할 수 있도록 이렇게 집중이 되어 있고 그 분석을 통해서 저희가 이제 어떤 선생님은 어떠한 성적들이 나타내고 이런 부분들을 저희가 또 관리할 수 있게 됩니다. 그리고 또 그런 선생님들에게 이렇게 고르게 가르치지 않으시면은 이런 현상이 나타난다. 어떤 선생님들에게 다 몰려가고 어떤 선생님들은 몰려가지 않고 뭐 이런 불규칙적인 것들을 저희가 이제 해소하려고 하고 있고 그런 부분들이 이제 데이터화하는 게 우리의 또 노력 중에 일원이었습니다. 그리고 또 하나는 이제 분석을 통해서 이제 그런 변화를 촉구하는 부분도 있지만 그 다음에 모든 연말 시험을 그렇게 똑같이 이렇게 시험을 치를 수 있도록 그런 제도도 저희가 도입을 하고 있습니다. 그래서 어떤 선생은 쉬운 시험 주고 어떤 선생님은 어려운 시험을 주는 그런 고르지 않는 부분도 저희가 지금 해결책을 지금 마련을 하고 있습니다.
So just to add to that, every department, of course, has a grading policy that you can find on Talos and on the school website. So as parents, you'll know what the grading policy are, for each department, and you have the academic policies that you can follow, and those are posted also. So if there are issues and differences across departments and with teachers, you can follow the spiral of communication. And of course, we encourage the student first to take the first step. So, we go over that often so that there is measures to take when there are differences and when there are issues to take on in grading. For the most part, as principal, you said, teachers are different, yes, but we try to stay consistent, and our department chairs really do try to meet with their teachers and stay consistent across departments. There's been a lot of improvement over the years, and going to Pupil Path and the online gradebook has been a rocky road, but has been a great improvement for families and for students.
제가 좀 보충을 한다면 선생님들이 좀 고르지는 않습니다. 다 다릅니다. 그건 사실이고 그러나 이제 그런 어려움들을 겪었을 때 우리는 그 과 대표 그러니까 그 학과별로 또 헤드가 있습니다. 그분들을 통해서 성적을 채점하는 어떤 제도 그다음에 그런 무게를 만드는 그런 전반적인 성적과 학업 프로그램에 대해서는 또 그 헤드들을 통해서 그 관리를 하고 있습니다. 그리고 그동안 어려웠던 부분들을 계속 개선을 하고 있고 그래서 고르지 않는 부분들을 지금 계속 발전을 시키는 건 사실입니다. 그러나 그런 어려움들이 또 계속 눈앞에 다가오면은 spiral of communication, 즉 행정 제도를 절차를 잘 밟으셔서 예를 들어서 뭐 선생님을 먼저 컨택하고 질문에 대해서 하고 그 다음에 그 헤드하고도 CC를 해가지고 그런 커뮤니케이션을 계속 잘 하셔서 어떤 문제나 어려움들을 잘 대화로 풀 수 있기를 저희는 좀 권장을 합니다. Okay.
Mr. Yu, were there questions that you wanted to take from the floor as well from this tonight?
Please, I think we're all warmed up, so ready
Yeah.
for
Anybody can.
the real main event.
Yeah.
자, 질문해 주십시오. 뭐 말씀을 하셔도 되고 채트방에 올리셔도 되고요. Okay, there's a question that can the school help clubs a little more financially? I guess
Yeah, we have been doing that. I mean, particularly this year, we've tried to do that more. Where it gets a little bit challenging is when the clubs buy some specialty items. So just as the easy answer is yes. And the school is working with the alumni and the PA to figure out ways of supporting clubs and who can actually provide that funding.
Great. There's another question about freshmen. I'm a freshman's parent, and she has not been able to meet her counselor at all, except for the homeroom counselor and the small group. Haven't seen the actual counselor. Do we reach out or do we wait?
You can definitely reach out. Oh, go ahead, Ms. Ingram.
Oh, no,
Go
okay,
ahead.
no.
Go ahead.
Please, you go ahead first. Absolutely.
I mean, yes, please reach out. I mean, I think it gives us an opportunity just to, again, put it on our radar. And, I would recommend just reaching out.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same, to also reach out, don't be afraid. I know freshmen, it's very difficult to go over to 236. It seems like an intimidating room to enter, especially for freshmen, to walk down the hallway and go into the great big room. But it's also the friendliest room, one of the friendliest rooms there is at Stuyvesant, because you get greeted with candy. So tell your students to please go into room 236, because there's usually some sort of music playing and always a bowl of candy. So have them go to room 236 and let Mr. Sebastian, who's super friendly and always has music playing, know that they want to meet their counselor, and it will go well. Very, very rarely do we hear a bad story. It's not really as an intimidating room as it feels like to a freshman.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I think that provides a lot of clarification. 카운슬러를 아직 못 만나시면 꼭 신청하시고요. 방에 직접 나가셔도 되고 이메일로 신청을 하셔도 되고요. Okay, we're down to about 13 minutes.
Well, I know that.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you very much for Mr. Principal Yu and Ms. Ingram for being with us this evening, and also the valuable information, insightful words. I appreciate that. About the grading, about the teachers, some are very stingy with grading. I understand that they have their own grading policy or unique grading system, but what about, because it's the problem that we worry is it'll affect college admissions, because we have to compete to those who from other than Stuyvesant High School, right? So is there anything that Stuyvesant students can take disadvantage from the bad grade from the particular teachers?
So for this year, as I mentioned before, the CR is an option if you're not happy with the numerical grade. I want to stress this. Colleges are aware that school districts all across the country are doing that because there are too many variables right now. So from a short-term perspective, that is an option. And it doesn't hurt the GPA, doesn't impact, I think just from an overall standpoint, like I know having the CR may appear as it's a bad grade. It's not. We write that in our college profile. We explain that because we have to explain how our grading policy, what's accepted, what's not. And colleges are well aware of what's happening in secondary schools. So that's something from a short term. While we're doing that is to go and again work towards the consistency aspect because we are trying to put measures in, as Ms. Ingram said, just around grading policy, around consistency in terms of creating those opportunities. So like again with a uniform final or some type of consistency across courses that have multiple teachers. So these are all things that we're putting in place that are both short-term and intermediate. But that's the two options right now that we're looking at because we do recognize that teachers have in the past and continue to grade a little bit differently. We are trying to make that shift, particularly with a lot of the policies that we're putting in place.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to translate that. Okay. 그 성적에 대해서는 아까 말씀드린 대로 CR을 잘 활용하시고요. 만족스럽지 않는 성적이 나오면 그러나 모든 성적에 대해서 이런 상황, 코비드 상황, 우리의 이런 어려움들은 대학교에 우리 프로파일을 통해서 커뮤니케이션을 지속적으로 하고 있습니다. 그래서 이런 어려움들을 충분히 또 우리 학교만 아니고 다른 학교도 충분히 그런 똑같이 겪고 있기 때문에 대학교들은 어느 정도 이해를 하고 있습니다. 그래서 그런 부분들을 잘 전략적으로 고민하시면서 대응하시길 바랍니다.
Just the last thing I want to say about the CR, we pushed for this last summer to the central office. So I knew some folks in the academic policy and I had indicated to them in the summer, it's like, I think for this year, you need to continue the CR. And just because I know at Stuyvesant, we are, and this year you said this, like we push our students. I don't know what's happening in other schools, but I know that our students are getting, are being asked a lot. And so the CR, they're not going to do this after next year from what I gather, but for this year, particularly as an extension of last year, I know a few other principals, including myself, we reached out in the summer with the hope that this would be something that the Department of Education would do, and they did. So we're fortunate that that's an option.
네, 그래서 저희가 여름에 CR 제도를 꼭 올해도 꼭 필요하다고, 왜냐하면 저희 학교도 굉장히 어렵게 난해한 코스를 계속 유지를 하는데 우리는 높은 수준을 계속 유지하는데 이런 옵션이 없으면은 굉장히 불이익을 당할 수 있기 때문에 저희가 CR 제도를 올해까지는 계속 실시하도록 하겠습니다. Okay, there's one more question. Oh, Ms. Ingram.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to add that many times I hear this a similar complaint because other high schools weight the grades, and Stuyvesant High School has no weight to any grades, including our AP courses. So it may feel like there's no inflation of a grade, and that might reflect differently when compared to other schools, to colleges. But one thing to keep in mind, as Principal, you mentioned that colleges are aware of Stuyvesant, and we have the same admissions officers that read our applications, and so they're very familiar with our school, so they know that, and a grade earned at Stuyvesant is a true grade earned at Stuyvesant, that it is not weighted. So you can be confident in that, and it's part of our profile, and know that it is not really a stinginess, but it is a true grade, and it is not inflated or weighted. So you have that assurance that colleges are aware, and the admissions officers note that.
Well said. Let me try to translate. 우리 학교에는 아시다시피 웨이팅, 즉 가산점이 없습니다. 다른 학교는 가산점이 많고 AP를 들든가 뭐 다른 오너스를 들으면 가산점이 붙어서 우리의 GPA가 다른 학교의 GPA하고 좀 동등하지 않습니다. 그러나 우리 스타이브센트는 웨이팅을 안 한다는 것을 제도를 누구보다 다 대학들은 다 알고 있고 그래서 그 가산점을 해서 불이익을 당하는 건 아니고 오히려 우리 학교의 그 점수는 실질적인 진정한 점수라는 것을 다들 인식하고 있기 때문에 다른 학교에 비교하면서 불이익을 당하는 사례는 없습니다. 단지 우리 스타에서는 자체적으로 그러한 제도를 실시하기 때문에 그 성적을 다 감안해서 인식하고 있고 그런 때 안심하시고 이 제도에 대해서는 그렇게 이해하시면 될 것 같습니다. Okay. Oh, there's okay, more grade related question. But okay. All right, this is I think just a follow-up. Some students and parents worry that raising issues related to grade would negatively affect students' grades and their relationship with students. Is there any suggestion?
My suggestion is this. I mean, when I came to Stuyvesant, I've heard this, from families, from students, and I'd like to believe that we can have cordial conversations. I think the vast majority of our teachers are very receptive. I think it's about the approach that students take and or a family might take. If it's a question out of curiosity and such, or a mistake or any of those things, I think our teachers are more than happy to hear that. I often think though it becomes a little bit, sometimes at times it becomes a little bit combative, or like, why isn't it this? Or like, why don't I get one more extra point or two more points? And I think unfortunately, sometimes it becomes very tension driven. I don't think, again, the vast majority of we're talking about the vast majority of teachers. I think they do recognize that. I think it's become, in terms, I don't want to say exaggerated, but I think, if you have one bad experience, then oftentimes easy to apply it to everyone. But I think from what I've seen and what I've heard, I mean, and I know because, again, when there's been a mistake, I've had to sign off on it, and I know that my name is on a lot of those. So I know it's happening, but I do think, again, I think it's often the approach, and I'd like to believe that our teachers and staff are professional enough to not let that impede a grade or such. I do think, though, it's important to, particularly under these stressful times, is to really think about the conversation and to approach it in a way, again, out of a question. And I think our teachers would be more than happy to handle that. If it does get to a place where it's combative, and or if it's not one that we can continue to further understand, then we clearly want you to take it up the chain of command, and we will do that. We'll go through the department chairs if it's not resolved, and then clearly it'll eventually come to me. But ideally, it's best if it can be solved with the teacher student, and ideally it should start with the student first before parents come in, because that way, that's part of the maturation of students, is to be able to advocate for themselves and to better understand how a grade is graded or how an assignment is graded.
That's great. I'll try to translate. 예, 그 성적에 대해서 그 담임 선생님하고의 대화를 꺼려하는 사례도 있습니다. 이제 사이가 안 좋아질까봐, 아니면 보복성이 있을까봐 그런 우려들이 있어서 조심스럽게 하는데, 이 상황을 어떻게 정리를 하는 게 좋을까요가 질문이었고, 그거에 대해서 답은 우리 교장 선생님께서 답해 주신 거는, 우리 선생님의 대체로 호의적으로 대응할 것입니다. 그러나 결국은 어떻게 접근을 하고 어떤 방식으로 선생님께 성적에 관해서 질의를 하셨는지가 제일 중요한 것 같습니다. 어떻게 보면 어떤 자세로, 또 이게 질문과 궁금증을 통해서인지, 아니면 내가 이거를 받아야 되는데 어떠한 신경전인가, 아니면 내가 무슨 실수인데 실수이라고 주장을 하든가 여러 가지 그런 거칠게 접근을 하면은 당연히 어려움이 있을 거고요. 그리고 그래서 결국은 학생이 공손하게 점잖게 프로페셔널하게 접근을 하고 또 학생이 먼저 하고 그다음에 그 담당 선생하고 먼저 하고 그다음에 이제 어려움이 있고 굉장히 그 대화가 안 풀리기 시작하면은 헤드와 디파트먼트 헤드나 그다음에는 뭐 계속 위로 올라갈 수 있는 그런 절차들이 있습니다. 그러나 그렇게 학생이 직접 나서서 자기 자신에 대한 성적을 어느 정도 또 대변하는 것도 어느 성숙도를 높이는 좋은 훈련이기 때문에 그렇게 권장을 합니다.
What I want to add to this is really don't be afraid, and please tell your students don't be afraid. I say that because I lived it as a parent. I know that my daughter would tell me, "Don't say anything to the teacher," or "Don't ever tell the teacher." And so I know that at least one time in your 4 years at Stuyvesant, your student might say that to you. But having worked with the staff here as an employee, I can tell you that overwhelmingly the teachers here want to be fair to your students. And if not, want to give them chance after chance after chance. So I've heard this many times where there's a fear that if the student says anything, if the parent says anything, that it might impact them if there is negatively or retaliation. And really overwhelmingly, the teachers really want to be fair and give chances. So please encourage your student to talk to their teacher. Don't be afraid.
누구보다 학부모의 마음을 압니다. 저도 학부모였기 때문에 우리의 선생님들이 대체적으로 굉장히 공정성을 선호합니다. 그래서 공평하게 뭔가를 진행하려고 하는 의지가 굉장히 강하신 분들이기 때문에 자녀분들이 두려워하지 마시고 선생님께 용기를 내어 공손하게 그렇게 접근해서 대화로 진행을 하는 게 상책인 것 같고요. 그런 부분들을 또 자녀들이 잘 헤쳐나갈 수 있도록 부모님께서 격려해 주시고 서포트 해 주시길 바랍니다. There's a little bit of follow-up question, if you don't mind. If your child has COVID and is quarantining, what exactly kind of support are they getting in terms of that extra layer of support?
Yeah, so one of the things that should be happening is, so every day when we get our list of quarantine students, we send it out to the teachers and indicating that there should be follow-up, some type of communication, just as if a student was absent. Additionally, what we're asking teachers to do is to hold an office hour. So again, that they can at least have some time. It's not an exorbitant amount of time. I'll be completely honest with you on that. But it is to be able to make sure that the student is aware of what's happening, and then to provide also asynchronous, so assignments as well as any type of work that they can put online. Now, one of the things that I would say is, again, if a student doesn't hear from a teacher, please have the student email the teacher. I know they're trying to get to everything that they can. This is new for everyone at this point, and trying to maneuver both in person and remote has presented many challenges. But I know everyone's trying to do their very best to keep people and to keep the students, up to date. The last thing I'll say too is we as a leadership team, and we've been expressing this to the staff, is we've seen a dip in our attendance. So we need everyone to be aware that you shouldn't be going through so much new material, recognizing that many of the students may not be there. And I think our teachers are well aware of that because they see that if their students not there, that somehow they need to be able to work with them. So what I would say is, if a student hasn't heard from their teacher, they should send them an email. And then we're also going to do part on our end, just trying to find out more about making sure that teachers are communicating with their students.
Great. quick translation. 그 자녀가 혹시 코비드 걸려 있고 집에서 쿼런틴 하고 있으면 어떤 지원을 해주립니까가 질문이었고, 그거에 대해서 지금 답변해 주시는 거는 먼저 그 absent한 처리되는 거와 같이 나중에 이제 숙제가 어떻게 됐는지 그 모든 교사들에게 코비드 리스트의 명단을 공유를 하게 됩니다. 그 해당 교사들에게. 그래서 그 교사들이 그 학생에게 커뮤니케이션을 통해서 학업 진행 경과와 숙제 이런 부분들을 계속 제공을 하고, 그리고 비대면적으로 숙제를 제출할 수 있는 그런 여건도 다 마련을 해주는 게 상식 원리고 원칙이고, 그 외에 오피스 아워를 갖춰서 그 지금 쿼런틴 하고 있는 학생과의 면담을 물론 줌으로 면담이나 아니면 통화를 할 수 있도록 그렇게 마련해 주는 게 원칙인데, 지금 우리 다 이렇게 처음 겪는 상황들이라서 100%잘 진행이 되는지는 확신은 못하겠으나 그것이 우리의 지원 방법이긴 합니다. 그러나 자녀분들이 혹시 왔는데 그런 연락이 안 받았으면 그 자녀분이 꼭 그 선생님을 이메일을 하든가 어떤 연락을 통해서 학업을 계속 캐치업할 수 있도록 이렇게 좀 조치를 취하시는 게 좋을 것 같고요. 그다음에 요즘에는 최근에 또 출석률이 많이 좀 저조합니다. 그것을 통해서 우리가 이제 선생님들에게 좀 권장하는 바에는, 그렇게 학생 수가 줄었는데도 불구하고 학업 속도를 너무 이렇게 강행하면 많이 뒤처질 수 있으니 좀 속도를 좀 더 조절해서 다시 이제 출석률이 정상화됐을 때 캐치업을 할 수 있는 그런 타임 조절도 저희가 지금 권장을 하고 있습니다.
Can I just end with, I know we're getting toward time, but I think something that I want to just share with families, and this really applies to our freshmen, sophomore, and juniors. Seniors have gone through the college application, and I know most of what the questions have geared around kind of preparation for next steps. But one of the things that I think is really important starting in freshman year is to think about your story, right? And senior parents, you probably know this, like the essays. And it's hard. It's the personal essay. What do you say about your 4-year experience or something that kind of helps you stand out? And this is why everything that we've said tonight is like, take a chance, explore, find out what you might be interested in, because after your junior year or during your junior year summer to your senior year, you have to think about what you're going to convey about who you are and what you're interested in. And oftentimes, and I've seen this with many students, they don't know what to say. They don't know what to even write. And it's hard to see freshman year, 3 years down the road, but that's essentially what you're doing. You're thinking about your story and the colleges and what you get 2 pages to talk about yourself and what you're interested in. And that's not easy to do, particularly if you can't think about anything that, think about something, your experiences. So in addition to the academics, which vast majority, if not all our students do really well, taking the, SAT, most of our students do really, really well, definitely above average. Many of our students participate in activities. That's probably the one area that we don't see enough of, right? Is students really participating, and the vast majority of students, not 1,000 students, but 3,300, and really trying to find something that they're interested in and using that experience to be able to think about life after high school. What would they say about themselves? What are they interested in? But I share that because I've seen that with my own family or my niece and nephew who did really well in high school, but couldn't think about why they wanted to go to college or what they're interested in, and had a really tough time with their college personal essays. And this is more than just the essays, but really is thinking about the story, about the things that you've experienced in high school and the things that you're interested in. But I wanted to share that because we've always focused on the academics and everything about how to create the best college application. Well, one of the biggest things, particularly in a school like Stuyvesant, is your story, because vast majority of our students do really, really well in their grades, do really, really well in the SAT. So what helps you stand apart? It's your ability to convey what has helped you stand apart, which is what's been your story over the course of your 4 years.
Great. Let me try to translate that. 제가 이 부분을 말씀을 드리고 오늘의 이 시간을 마감을 하려고 합니다. 제가 꼭 말씀드리고 싶은 것은 특별히 이거 1, 2, 3학년 학부모님에게 해당이 더 되는데 4학년들은 이미 다 애플리케이션 거의 끝났기 때문에 뭐 다 아실 겁니다. 꼭 말씀드리고 싶은 거는 이 애카데믹적인 것들, 이제 고등학교 때 뭐 학점들, 시험 잘 보고 우리 학교는 모든 면에서 우수합니다. 그러나 입시할 때는 결국은 제일 중요한 파트 중에 1호는 에세이입니다. 그 에세이는 나의 스토리, 나의 유니크한 부분들을 나타내는 것이 굉장히 중요한 것인데, 그래서 제가 아까서부터 계속 말씀드리는 거는 도전하십시오. 새로운 걸 해보십시오. 용기를 가지십시오. 이런 부분들을 계속 여기서 이제 모험을 통해서 이 스타의 3년 반 동안의 활동을 통해서 뭔가 이 에세이에 반영할 수 있게 나만의 스토리를 나타내는 것이 매우 중요하고 입시의 굉장히 키포인트의 일원이기 때문에 자녀들에게 액티비티든 다양한 경험들을 계속 노력할 수 있도록 그렇게 권장을 해주시고 옆에서 이렇게 응원해 주시길 바랍니다. Okay. I did a summary version. It wasn't as eloquent and beautiful, but I did my I tried.
No, you did you did awesome. It was really spot on. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. We are 10 minutes past. Thank you for the extra hours, your efforts, your dedication, and your love for the community. We thank you so much.
Thank you, Principal Yu. Thank you, Miss Ingram. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank all of you. Thank you.
for coming.
Happy New Year. And
Happy-
the lunar Happy New Year is coming up. So Happy New Year again.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
Stay
so much.
safe.
Have a good night.
Okay.
Have a
Good
good night,
night.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.